We're here in Richmond, Virginia. It's May 6th, 2010. I'm here with David Stelzl. We just completed our security seminar, and we're sitting in the hallway. And I had some questions to ask Dave as a follow-up to the seminar. Dave, in the session, you mentioned that companies really can't secure their information with products alone. Why is that, and where should they start?
Okay. Yeah, I think the product approach is common because the market's kind of led us there, right? If you think about security products, they're everywhere. There's lots of manufacturers, lots of software out there, and all the advertising around data security is a technical issue. It's always a technical issue, and it always has been. And so the product approach is thought to be it. The problem is that the product approach leaves out the human factor. In fact, there was a book written some time ago, and I won't mention the author's name because he came back and recanted, but he actually said if we could just encrypt everything, we'd be safe. Well, he came back later on and he said, I forgot about the human factor, right? The fact that people are emailing stuff all the time, and that's usually an unencrypted thing, but they're sending stuff out there that is very sensitive. But it gets worse, right? They're carrying it around. Where's the data? The data is on my laptop. It's on a PDA device. I mean, today, it's hard to differentiate between your computer and a BlackBerry or some other smartphone, right? We have a lot of data in wireless technology, and so trying to prevent anybody from getting to all that stuff assumes that you could somehow predict how they're going to attack it. How are they going to get into the data? And if you can't predict it, then you don't know what road to go down. You don't know how to protect it or what to protect it against. And so the idea is to somehow change the mindset, and this is what I really addressed in today's talk. In my book, I don't have a copy of my book, Data at Risk, but Data at Risk, what it's talking about is I need to somehow figure out how to detect what's going on with my data. And if I can't detect it, then I can't really stop it. They're going to sneak in the middle of the night and steal it, and it's gone. So we have to stop thinking about protecting and start thinking about detecting, and then there's got to be a way to respond. Okay, I'm detecting something that's abnormal, and of course this is data, right? And data is happening, so fast, and the logs are building up, and nobody can watch it. So there's got to be technology now used in that detection process to then move to some kind of response that will stop the problem.
Yeah, simplifying it and making it work. It's definitely a challenge. So we hear this buzzword, cloud computing. It's heard almost everywhere. Google clouds. I mean, what is that all about? What are the risks? What are the threats? Is there a good cloud or a bad cloud, a black cloud? I don't know. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, yeah, this seems to be a common question, particularly because Google and China are in the paper a lot. I think I have a couple of videos out on YouTube already that hit on the issue, right? Is cloud computing safe? Different aspects of it are safe, but when you talk about pure cloud computing, most people are thinking about, do I use Google for disk space? Do I use Google for email? Does Microsoft have some kind of parallel thing? Other companies that are big global organizations, Amazon has some different things out there. And so the concept is great, but it's really built around convenience, not around security. So when you start putting things in the cloud, we're going back to that idea that where's my data? It's not in my data center. It's not on my laptop. It's now in the cloud. And the real problem is, I'm a small company, right? And you're a small company, and a lot of your clients are small companies. They are targets of what we call the class attack. A class attack is something that I automate, something that I come up with a little program, and I automate this thing. I send it out to everybody through some kind of spam or some kind of website or something like that, and people get compromised. Versus a targeted attack. A target attack is where I take the time to figure out how to get in. Now, these large companies, like large banks, let's say, for instance, or large military installations, the U.S. Treasury was recently hacked just this month. Are those companies secure? Well, yeah, they are pretty secure. However, they're not completely secure. And because of the large profile of the U.S. Treasury, somebody gets the idea, I want to get in. And a class attack is not going to do it. It's got to be a targeted attack. And the same thing is true when I start using cloud computing. I'm in there with big, huge companies with big, sensitive data. And so I wasn't a target, but I just made myself a target because now I'm in the cloud sitting next to the target. This is bad. So my advice is here. I use some cloud computing stuff. I'm not against it. I'm against moving the whole IT infrastructure to the big cloud. You guys do some hosting, right? Application hosting. Okay, that's kind of like a beginning of a cloud kind of thing. Is that good? Sure, because that takes the operational errors out of the organization that has a very limited IT function and puts it in the hands of a much larger IT organization whose cost is spread out among many companies. This is a great model. This is the way we ought to be thinking about this, particularly in the SMB market.
I couldn't agree more. And what I've seen with cloud with one particular client was that they had given their data to this cloud provider, and they was failing. Their service was always down. It was so slow they couldn't function correctly, and it was costing them some real money. And then they had to get their data back. And there's a lot of laws that haven't been written yet because it's such a new thing. And I don't know that there's actually a law out there that says that they have to give it back. And if there was, and they had to go to court and battle this thing out, well, that could be weeks or months or who knows how long. By then, they could be out of business. And so I think there's a lot of threats out there putting your data into a cloud. And I think, like you said, if it's not critical or if it's not that sensitive, maybe it's an opportunity. But I think you need to think about it before you just commit. The last question I have here is, so what do you see as the biggest threat to a small or mid-sized business or a business owner?
Yeah. Okay. So the biggest threat, right? We just had 50 small business owner kind of people in this meeting, and I had several conversations with various people after the event, just talking about how their data is used and where it's stored and all that sort of thing. I think one of the biggest problems is that small business owners or small businesses in general, the users and everyone in there, have this sense that we're not a target and we're okay. And this is a dangerous way to think. Okay? If I think I'm not a target, then I'm not locking things down, and the bad guys know that. And so they're targeting the SMB market. And so what I want to do is I want to be safer than the guy next door. And the best way to be safer than the guy next door is to be using some kinds of technology that do detection things. And it may be hard to picture this for the average SMB owner, but if I'm a hacker, I can tell that you're monitoring certain things. And when I try to break in and I see that, I'm going to pull back because I don't want to be detected, and I'm going to go to some other SMB. So that's a great way to be doing it. I also think constant assessment, right? Assessment is largely left to big organizations that have big federal compliance, like banks and whoever else, healthcare organizations. But just everybody ought to be assessing what data is critical in this organization, where is that data sent, who has access to it, and how am I protecting, particularly the end node. I had one very important conversation at the end of this meeting with a guy who was talking about what does he do at home, and I said, well, do you do business at home? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, does everybody in your company do business at home? And he said, well, people take their work home. So what I said to him is, your computers at home are your business computers too. You got to treat them the same way, which means you have to extend the perimeter of your organization out all the way to the end node and be focused on how do I protect that. And again, it's not just protection, it's detection. What can I do to detect if a laptop is stolen? Where does it land? I know you've had some clients with that kind of issue. If you can track that laptop down and get to that data, which we have tools today to do, that kind of stuff is great. Encrypting laptops, a lot of things we can do on the end node, and that's where the SMB person is so much at risk today.
Great. That's good information. And again, thanks for coming out and being with us today and sharing all this great knowledge. I have no more questions.
All right.